On the buy end, the owner's like, oh my goodness, my couch is shot because the color's faded, so they're selling it for cheap. But then you do this minimal waxing process and it looks so much better that you can sell it for a lot more.
You don't even necessarily need an extensive skill set in leather repair to be making money on leather couches, as long as you have an eye for what you should be buying.
I know for a fact in Baltimore and DC that my flippers will get a couch that retails at like $8,000 to $10,000 for like $500. I feel like leather is a little bit of a gap in the market in that sense that it's a little harder to identify what's good leather and what's not. It's a little harder to identify real leather versus fake leather. And I think the margins are probably bigger between a leather buy and a leather sell if you pick the right brand than maybe your average fabric couch for thousands of dollars can be made on a flip when choosing a good brand. And
welcome back to another episode of The Couch Pod, the show where we break down the strategies, skills, and stories that are shaping the future of furniture flipping. Today's guest is a familiar face, or should I say a familiar set of hands. In part one with Chris Repp, we sat down and he gave us a behind-the-scenes look at how he built a business restoring leather pieces and how to potentially transform these leather pieces into profit for furniture flippers. But this time we're leveling it up. Chris has launched a dedicated leather repair course for flippers and associated services. So we're going to go deep on how the skill can unlock higher margins, faster flips, and better sourcing opportunities. Whether you're brand new or already running a high volume flipping business, what we cover today could be the difference between a couch you pass on and a couch you turn into cash. Chris, welcome back to the show.
glad to be back.
Super glad to have you. And the last time we talked, you were deep in the trenches doing leather repair work. What's changed since then?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I still spend a lot of my time on site doing leather furniture restoration for customers in Baltimore and Washington, D.C. But I guess more since being on with you before and seeing how many flippers reached out with interest, my mindset is more thinking in terms of like, oh, would this couch that I'm getting paid to restore be a good opportunity for a furniture flipper if they could buy it cheap and use some portion of the skills that I have to level it up and then resell it? And so, yeah, you guys are just, thanks to you, the flippers are just more on my mind, I'd say. And one thing that I had a sort of an aha moment was there's a good percentage of work that I do that doesn't take a lot of advanced skills. So you can do cleaning techniques and some basic waxing and techniques, and you don't have to be an expert to do that. So it's a great opportunity for a flipper. So yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about you guys more often and thinking of ways that I can serve that community.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for keeping us in mind. I guess it's kind of like the Volkswagen effect, right? Like, don't have a Volkswagen, never bought one before. Maybe you don't notice them when you're driving around the road, but you buy your first Volkswagen, all of a sudden, all you can see are Volkswagens.
That's right. Yeah, and I've been on my own for almost 20 years now. So thinking of running my own business and young guys, I have a 20-some-year-old son who's just actually stepped back from college to get involved in the business, and just I guess you'd say a heart for young guys and ladies that want to do a less traditional path. And the more I research flippers, it's just that's what that kind of person is. They're a self-starter and they have a desire to make an income in a different way, and it's cool. So I want to be a part of helping out.
Yeah, it's not only the desire to liberate themselves from a 9 to 5 and be able to work on their own terms, like couch flipping, furniture flipping. It's backbreaking work. It's hard labor, and so that's one of the things that I really admire about our audience is that these guys do not shy away from hard work. They're looking for good, honest labor, and you can't ask for much more than that at the end of the day.
Yeah, very cool.
So when did you realize there was real demand from flippers to learn these skill sets? Like, it was after the couch pod, or tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I had a little bit of experience before that because in the Baltimore, Washington area, there's three that I work with on a more regular basis who are also flipping furniture. And it's just a natural progression for them to want to be able to do some of the stuff themselves. And I don't begrudge them that, over time, truth is I'll work a little bit less often with someone who's flipping stuff because they learn some basic stuff. Margins are everything for them, and what they have in it is less profit for them. So yeah, I sort of realized for them, the first 15 times they had me out, I was doing every repair. And then as the months went by and they were watching and asking me questions, they're starting to do a few things themselves. And I don't have a problem with that because like you said, they're hard workers, but they also tend to be people, kind of industrious people that can do a little bit of this and that themselves. And I think that's great. So yeah, I wanted to help. And that's when I saw it. And then I also saw it more as I engage with your community.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing that you're not begrudging them that information either, right? Like some people might take it the wrong way, but you're like, this is just kind of the how things are going to be, right? It's a natural course of like, if you're a smart, savvy business owner and you're bringing in a guy to do work, like, of course, you're going to observe and like learn things along the way. So instead of trying to keep that information private, you're going the opposite route, which is making it even more public and, making this information more accessible and therefore, creating opportunities for people to make more money in their business.
Yeah, I like that. Yep.
Now, why is leather such a high leverage category for flippers in your mind?
Yeah, I've done a few little promos and things, and I kind of call it the hidden gem. And I feel like, you know the market better than me, but I feel like with wood furniture and fabric flips, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of options. You can get stuff really cheap, and it's pretty easy to do the basic skills. But I feel like leather is a little bit of a gap in the market in that sense that it's a little harder to identify what's good leather and what's not. It's a little harder to identify real leather versus fake leather, which we did a lot with on the last episode. But it's also a little harder to get the skills to kind of bring it up. So maybe it's a little daunting, to people. And I don't think it has to be. I think there's ways to identify the right leather to flip. And I think the margins are probably bigger between a leather buy and a leather sell if you pick the right brand than maybe your average fabric couch or something like that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And like we started with, it's just my wheels starting to turn more on this, thinking, yeah, this is a pretty cool opportunity. And I'm not seeing a lot of people like me that are serving this community to give them the skills to do it.
Mm-hmm. And, one thing that we had talked about in the previous pod is that leather is a very costly material. I'm not sure what the cost per square foot is. How much is it for like genuine leather cost per square foot?
Yeah, so I honestly don't know. It's funny how interesting the segments are. There's like tanneries that buy hides and finish them, and then there's finishing houses that finish the leather. Then there's upholstery shops that make the leather. And I'm a refinisher, so I deal a lot with like this would be the retail cost of the couch and $5,000, but for $500 I can refinish it for you. So I don't know, but I do know from my conversations with upholsterers that a bolt of fabric is so many yards, but you have to buy leather by the hide. So a cowhide is going to be, especially a well-finished cowhide, per hide is going to be a lot more expensive. And it might take 3, 4, 5 full cowhides to make a leather couch. So in that sense, it's definitely more on the front end than, a fabric.
Absolutely. And which makes sense, right? It's like literally 5 animals, right? To cover a couch versus imagine like a spool, like a giant spool of fabric, polyester, what have you. So it's expensive material. That's the simple point. And therefore you're not putting expensive material on shoddy infrastructure, on like a shoddy frame, right? Like, so through and through, if there's genuine leather being used in the materials for furniture, that furniture piece is more likely to be something premium or high end than something that you could potentially buy in fabric.
Yeah, and also there's just a mystique. For thousands of years, leather has been a luxury product for bags and clothes and all kinds of things. It lasts a super long time. It has sort of a little bit higher price point or whatever. And there's just something about leather that makes it have a higher value. Now they've discovered bonded leathers and vinyls, and you can go on Wayfair or whatever and find a $2,000 couch that's leather. But part of what I want to help flippers do is to see the stuff that's worth putting money into. And you're right, that stuff that's worth it is definitely stuff that has more upfront cost and a higher, long-term value.
Absolutely. The other point that you made is that you need to develop some expertise and a skill set around being able to work with leather. And you don't have to do super sophisticated repairs, but just the nature of the material is a little bit harder for the average person to work with than a fabric. And so by developing that skill set, you set yourself apart from your competition who may not have put in the time and energy required to have those skills, right? So now you're competing against less people when it comes to this specific set of couches.
Absolutely. I definitely think there's going to be less people that know what they're doing and are picking good stuff. Another thing I mentioned in my sort of pitch to flippers is that in my own business experience, integrity matters a lot to me because I have a lot of people I'm dealing with on a couch today and another couch in 6 months, or a flipper that might have something every week. So I want integrity in what I do. And in leather, to have integrity, you have to know what you're buying. You have to know the products you're using to refinish it, or else you can do a poor job. And the tricky part is it can look good today or for pictures for resale. But if it's the wrong kind of thing. Like I've seen people use spray paint from Home Depot to put on a leather couch. And honestly, in a month or two, that's going to crack and break out. And that person who bought it from you is going to either not buy from you again or badmouth you. And so, yeah, having the skills is important, but also having the integrity of saying, I did a good job. This is going to last for this person and they're going to speak well of me going forward. That means a lot to me too.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to be in business 20 years, you have to operate with integrity. And, what's funny is like when the prevailing wisdom in the couch flipping communities about how to deal with leather repairs was exactly that. You get some Brillo paint and people are like actively giving this advice, like just, throw some Brillo paint on it, it's going to fix it up just enough but like downstream, right? Like how is that customer going to feel when that starts rubbing off in just a couple months? Like that's not going to leave a good taste in their mouth.
It's true. It does. In my research, trying to get a better sense of this community, I've looked at some pretty high follower flippers and been surprised at some of the advice. I'm not going to badmouth them or anything, but they're just doing the best they can. But that was to me a sign that somebody with experience could come into this and educate or encourage, flippers, small and bigger flippers to use some more time-tested skills. Maybe even if they're doing a lot of leather, there may be 5 or 10 a month that they're dealing with. Well, I'm doing 5 or 10 leather couches a week. So I'm just over 20 years. So I've made all those mistakes and I've learned from them and I hope to pass on those skills.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of, things that are not well understood about dealing with leather couches, what would you say is the biggest misconception that flippers may have about doing leather repairs?
Okay. I guess I think of it in terms of the buy or the choice of what couch to get initially, and then the skills to redo it. Because even me, I've got tons of experience, but if I say yes to a customer whose couch is badly cracking or faded and really stiff to the touch, there's only so much I can do. And in fact, not even enough that I'm comfortable putting my name on that. So I say no to a lot of jobs that could make me good money up front because the leathers no longer has integrity to it. So I think the first thing is understanding if it's worth it. I look at pictures every day. So it's not even a matter of having to be on site and touching the couch. I can tell from pictures now if a couch has cracking that is easily repairable cracking, or if it's cracking that is just too deep. I liken it to like rotting wood. Like you can't refinish a wood table where the wood is rotting. And leather can be the same way. It's called pH damage and it's deep cracking. And at that point, it's no longer doable. So if you get it for a super great deal, but you can't do anything with it, or it's going to break open in a month or two, then that's a problem. So yeah, it's almost like even before the repair skills, you want to identify brand and the pictures and the feel of the couch if it's a good candidate for repair. And then that's almost more than half the game, really. Because if you pick stuff that's a good fit for repair, then honestly, the cleaning and a lot of the repair and reconditioning skills are not that hard. We can go into all of those, but if you pick the right thing, that's a big part of the game.
Interesting. No, that's a really great point to shed some light on, in that you don't even necessarily need an extensive skill set in leather repair to be making money on leather couches, as long as you have an eye for what you should be buying. And that's like much easier to like learn and internalize and implement in your business than it is to go and execute a leather repair. And you're getting at least 50% of the value right then and there.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that was one of those mindset things for me. There's a brand called Mitchell Gold, which is good quality brand. And I was out doing 2 chairs and ottomans. And on that job, I think it was soon after you and I did our podcast. And on that job, I never broke out a spray unit, or I didn't have to custom match specific colors. This is a brown chair that you see a ton of in Restoration Hardware and Pottery Barn and Mitchell Gold, that with the right wax from a tub of wax and some basic skills, we were able to make almost $1,000 in the reconditioned side of it. And if you bought it cheap, you could probably even make more than that. So that at that point, I was like, yeah, these skills are not super complicated and people can learn them and do a good job.
So other than identifying what to buy, let's say on the repair side of things, right? For a beginner flipper interested in getting into leather, what is the most valuable skill set that they can learn when it comes to an actual repair? Like what is the most Pareto efficient, right? Like, so it's 20% of the effort that yields you 80% of the results.
Right. And it's funny. I follow all the markets and, the leather cleaning companies that are out there and the product lines and the repair products. And it's when you watch their videos, from my perspective, you see them choose pieces that are so easy that they get these amazing results and they show the transformation and say, buy my product. But I'm thinking, oh, you pick the right thing. And okay, so a repair idea there is if leather is, I think we went into this on the last episode, it's a hide, and then there's a color coat, and then there's a clear coat. And most leather is done that way. And over years of use, the clear coat comes off, the color coat comes off, and you have just the raw hide. And if you know how to just replace a little bit of that color and then reprotect it with like a wax or a clear coat, you can take something that looks pretty ratty, because underlying leather hide is like off-white color. And say you have a brown couch and the underlying leather hide is off-white, it looks pretty shot. You're like, oh, what can even be done with this? But it's not that hard. Again, as long as the cracks aren't too deep, if they're pretty superficial, I can get you a tub of wax that has a little tint in it, and you buff it, going seam to seam, one cushion to the next, and drying it correctly and then clearing it. And it's like you get a wow factor there. So like on the buy end, the owner's like, oh my goodness, my couch is shot because the color's faded. So they're selling it for cheap. But then you do this minimal waxing process and it looks so much better that you can sell it for whatever part of retail you want to sell it at, which can be a lot more. So I think that's probably the 80-20 one there, is this color reconditioning on a couch that's just lost color. And it absorbs easily too, so you don't even have to perfectly match the color. That's another thing, because a leather refinisher, it takes years to get really good at dialing in color if you're using paints. But if you can find a couch that just needs some of this tinted wax and it's superficial, you can make such a big difference in the appearance of that couch and sell it for a lot more.
Absolutely. So, of course, leather repair is an art, and it can take decades to master. But if you're just trying to make some money, you don't necessarily have to go to the full extent of becoming an artisan. There are two very relatively easy skills that you can learn today. One being identifying what to buy, and then second being this reconditioning process that are going to yield you probably the majority of your results when it comes to flipping leather furniture. And what would you say if we were to quantify the impact of this? Right, is the value that you add to like how much more money can someone earn in flipping a leather couch by just learning these two skills? How would you quantify that?
Yeah, so I don't want to be you're like negative about a certain category, but let's just be super generic. I know that some of my flippers deal with people who have means in general and decide 2 or 3 years after their designers did their living room that they just want it done over again. And they're not that concerned about price. And I know for a fact in Baltimore and DC that my flippers will get a couch that retails at like $8,000 to $10,000 for like $500. And it's not even because it's worn out. It's just because they want to redo the living room or whatever. And then so they get the couch for $500. It retailed for $8,000, and they put a little time into it, do the basics, maybe pay me a couple $100, and then they go back up to about half of retail. So that's $4,000. And so there's $30,000 or $3,500 there. So that's picking, a good situation where someone is doesn't really care. But I think your flippers probably have experienced a lot of this, that like they're just happy that somebody's willing to come and pick it up and they don't have to deal with it, even though the retail price can be quite high on a lot of leather brands. So yeah, I really think thousands of dollars can be made on a flip when choosing a good brand and knowing what you're buying.
Absolutely. I mean, for the average consumer, maybe they've only had one leather couch. They don't intend on sticking in that category, and so going through the effort, the time and energy to like really figure this out and apply the skills doesn't make sense for them. They're just going to hire someone, or they're going to go buy a new one, right? But if you're a flipper, I mean, you might be buying 5 to 10 couches a week in the same way that you're repairing 5 to 10 leather pieces a week, right? And so, there's plenty of opportunity to take the skill set and apply it to the everyday operations of your business.
Yeah, I think so. That's one of the things I was excited about with the course, is that flippers have opportunities to get a lot of pieces. Like some of the battle of getting good at the skills is just having pieces to work on, right? But there's nothing wrong with taking a couple of on the lower end leather couches that are pretty beat up, having a little bit of shop space or a little extra room for you to work on it, and practicing these skills a little bit and getting better at it with 2 or 3 pieces that you have just kind of sitting around, because you got them cheap. So I actually recommend that as a early step, as once you learn a few of these skills or gain the knowledge of what the skills are, that you just get a few cheap pieces and invest in some of the basic products, which shouldn't be more than a couple $100, and get practicing. Start practicing the skills on a few pieces.
Absolutely. So speaking of your course, Could you walk me through it? How is it structured? Who is it for? What sort of skills do you go over? Like, could you give us a little bit more color there?
Yeah, sure. I was actually did a little thing. We can probably put this in the link. I'm not sure if it's something that can be seen super easily, but what I thought of was sort of a check sheet for flippers. I actually did on-site training course about a month ago in New Jersey. John from Kydeco, I believe he knows of you. I don't know if you know of
Right.
him.
No, I know John. Yeah. Shout out, John.
Yeah. I went up there and did some work for him and a few of his warehouse guys, and it gave me a lot of time to think of the structure of it and how they're moving a lot of stuff in New York and New Jersey. So anyway, we can probably link this, so I won't hold it up, but it's basically stuff we've talked about, and it's sort of doing this checklist process from the very beginning. What kind of leather is it? Because even understanding whether it's a finished protected leather or a waxed on leather or a nubuck leather or vinyl, that is going to set the tone for every step that follows. So you've got to assess that correctly before you buy it. But then once you buy it, that's the first step. And then the second step is going to be the cleaning process. Again, depending on what kind of leather it is, there's different cleaning techniques for each that are going to be appropriate. And we can kind of go through those, some tools, the actual chemicals I would use to clean a particular couch, and then sort of assessing the damage issues. I have the third one here is sort of like, notating, all right, there's a scratch on the side and there's a discoloration on the seat and there's, another puncture hole or whatever. And then processing each of those repairs. And some of those repairs are really easy and we can do that easily. Some of them are going to take some practice and you got to get a little better at the repair skills before you're comfortable doing that. But and some of them you don't have to fix, you can sell it with still a few little blemishes, but as you're maximizing your skills, you're maximizing your profits, and one of the repairs I did for John when we went up there was a restoration hardware couch, and it had a few small holes in the seats and his guys just weren't there yet. So I did that. And then he sent me the link to the the posting a few hours later. He had it up on to sell and he shipped stuff all over the place. So we had fixed holes that raised the resale value because I had further skills. But so that's the third thing is the different damages. And then the fourth thing is going to be the finish. This is another one for me that's kind of an integrity one. It makes me cringe when you spray paint on leather or do Brillo on there. As it dries, it's going to get harder and harder. So it's going to feel like sandpaper to the touch. And I have the techniques, and I think they're easy if you're paying attention, to buff out that final feel, get a beautiful finish to it, even protect the leather a little bit. Again, something's not necessarily going to be noticed when they look at pictures and say, I want to buy it. But once they get it in their home and they're sitting on it and they feel it, their back of their leg touches against it and it's like rough, it's going to leave a bad taste. So that final step to get it Leather Help certified is going to be that I want the finish to feel really nice and be really protected. So it's understanding the leather, cleaning it, repairing, and then finishing it so it's well protected. That's kind of the process I'm hoping to walk people through.
Cool. And you've had many students at this point successfully complete the course and implement these insights into their business. Is that correct?
So I had an old course that I did a training for warehouse folks in retail stores. That is where I started training people. We videoed that. We made a course on that. We've sold that course. And I've done in-person trainings. The flipping course is actually new. It's coming right now, and it's going to take all these skills and put them together. We didn't talk about this in advance, but I actually am going to be looking for 5 or so people to be kind of early adopters as this course launches, either a reduced price or free or something, just to really get their feedback, because I want to make sure this course meets the needs, particularly of furniture flippers. And I'm going to give some early adopters the opportunity to have the course, and John is actually one of them. He's going to get the course when it first comes out, and then make it better and make it worth that $500 to $1,000 that I sold the old course for. So I have a lot of experience. I work with a lot of flippers, but this course is actually quite new.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah. So we'll help you debut the course then.
Yeah. There you go. Yep.
All right. Well, at least with respect to the old course that you had and the in-person trainings that you've provided, what sort of ROI are your students seeing on average when they begin to learn this skill set and implement it in their business?
Sure. I think I don't know that I have concrete numbers, but I mean, with the old course, to be honest, I used to do a lot of repairs for these furniture stores, and now I hardly ever get called. They call me when they have really hard ones, and all the easier repairs they now know how to do because I set them up with the right chemicals. I taught them the basic techniques, like the 80-20 techniques, like you said, that they were going to see most often, and they're doing most of that. So at the bottom line, that's saving them a lot of money on the retail side. As flippers go, again, that's been my experience with the people in Baltimore, Washington. They're less frequently calling me, which is fine. I decided 10, 15 years ago when retail stores started doing that to me that I'm not going to be like some bitter, hold my secrets tightly person. I'm going to put it out there, and it creates different opportunities. So same with my flippers. They are calling me less often. They're doing more minor stuff themselves because I've been willing and able to teach them. So that's saving them money. If instead of paying me $300 to clean up a chair, they can do it in $20 worth of supplies, then that's $280 more in profit they're making each one that they buy and flip. So there's definitely ROI there. I probably will start to gather more of those concrete numbers. But I think it's set up to create value for.
Absolutely. That makes total sense. I mean, there's immediate value in just saving on repair costs, which you highlighted. But then the additional value that you unlock on each flip could be 3, 4, 5x in excess of what you're saving on repair costs as well. In that you're making this item that is not that marketable much more presentable and valuable to your end consumer as well.
Absolutely. I do. I think that is a fact with leather. The more you can make something look pristine, it doesn't have to look perfect. That's a cool thing about leather. It has markings and scars and natural variations. And the truth is, a lot of those scars are repaired in the factory and aren't really scars. They were damages at one time. So you can fix stuff up and make it look like leather should. Nobody knows the difference, and it just looks like a cool piece of leather with some natural markings, and it actually raises the value. Chesterfield couches and Ralph Lauren writing chairs and bomber jacket, Brompton style wax leathers that the more beat up and distressed they look, the more people pay for them. So yeah, you can do stuff that really increases the value and the profitability of leather.
Absolutely. Like the patina, right, if you will.
Yeah. That's it. Absolutely.
Cool. So now I know one question that is going to come to mind for people that are on the fence about your course is, maybe they have zero experience, right? They've never touched a leather repair and they're just a little bit unsure of their abilities. How are you going to make sure that someone with zero background can actually implement your course and get the results? Like, are there assurances or additional support that you're providing, coaching? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
No, that's a good point. Well, so the first line of that is that I've decided to put the repair issues and the restoration issues into 3 different levels. So as I structure the course, there's going to be level 1 repairs. So if it's a scratch on a brown couch, that is a really easy in a lot of cases. So that's a level 1 situation that with very minimal skill, you can do that. And then you can kind of backward plan from that and say, if I see a couch I like, but it has a scratch on the brown leather, I can know that's an easy repair that I'm just learning, but I can buy that one. But if it's a burn hole in the seat of a couch that's like 2 inches around, that I'm going to put in level 2 or level 3. And you can say, I'm not ready for that right now. I'm going to pass on that one, or I'm going to have to build in $200 for my local leather pro to come and fix it for me. So that was one way I decided to address that exact thing is as the modules go, there's going to be level 1 that you're going to be able to do almost from day one. There's level 2 repairs that I think if you're basically handy person and a few months of practice, you can get to these skills. And then there's the level 3 that you're either going to have to get pretty good at the skills yourself, which you can do, or you're going to hire someone out. So that's, I think, a way to assure that you can buy stuff that fits that category when you're just starting. And then that's going to help people to get value out of it. And then also, you mentioned that, again, it's pretty fresh. I'm not going to pretend that this course, that I've done this for years. But I certainly can easily see a path to a community where we're sharing ideas back and forth. And I can just say for myself, unless we sell like 100 courses because of this, I have a bunch of guys that just reach out to me personally. Send John and I, before we decided to do that course, he was texting me pictures almost every week. And I was giving him feedback, giving him my suggestions, sending him links to the products I would use. And until I'm like some global powerhouse or something, and even then, there's probably a way that we can have a community that helps each other and gets better at it. So that is a commitment that I'm making to be in it with someone until they get the value out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it speaks to your general point about you operate with integrity, right? So if they're working with you, that there's a sort of personal guarantee that you're making as well, right? Like you take it incumbent upon yourself that you want your students to have good results.
Yeah, I do. It's fun. It's really fun to see them send back a finished product of a couch that they've done and sold.
Speaking of which, what are some common aha moments or like moments where your students have gotten kind of like, wow, like wide-eyed with the result that they've gotten?
Yeah. So again, some of it's just the right knowledge. And there's a repair I did in the old course that there's the two guys I trained are on video doing this repair, and they didn't know ahead of time they were going to do it. And I just taught it to them on the fly. It was a razor slice. They had some spare pieces. We made razor cuts in them, and we were able to show them the basic technique, and they were able to repair them. And there's a lot of retailers. I've watched some of your stuff, and I know you talk about like overruns and different ways that retailers have to unload stuff. And one way they have to unload stuff is if like the delivery crew put a slice in it and they can't sell it. But interestingly enough, if you have the right technique and it's the right kind of slice, it's easy to repair, and you can use the right leather glue and heat it and technique it, and it's better. So yeah, it was really cool watching them nail that repair. Where if you get the glue just right and you hide it and you dry it, it's just like gone. So you had a razor slice and now it's gone. And there are repairs that I guess I would put in that level 1 category like that, where you can feel pretty good about yourself. You're like, wow, I did this repair. So I've seen that a lot where guys are able to accomplish something they didn't know they could repair quite easily with just the basic knowledge skill about how to do it.
I see. Yeah. I mean, that, like one thing I do as, I guess, a hobby now is like I like learning languages. I've been spending a lot of time in Latin America as a digital nomad now. It's like, it's interesting picking up a new skill as an adult other than just like the stuff that you do for work. And I think they teach languages in school completely wrong, because in school you're so focused on like the vocabulary and the grammar and reading. And then when it comes time to actually have a conversation with someone, you freeze and you don't get this like feedback loop of like, I practiced something and then I was able to put it into play and then immediately see the results of my action. And so getting these little wins early on are extremely important for not just like being successful at learning overall, but just keeping you motivated and knowing that you're on the right track. And so what you're noticing is that, these 80-20 skills that we were talking about are really where people, the first time they try it and implement it is like when their eyes go like, wow, okay, there's something here. I can make some money doing this.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. That's a neat connection to learning a skill. My son, like I said, has been getting into the business, and he went with me for a lot of years, just as a kid tagging along. But he's just grown by leaps and bounds now that he's doing it on his own and actually, like trying a job that maybe is a little above his current skill level and pressing that envelope, succeeding in that skill and experiencing the pride of doing that. And I think that's possible with this skill. Leather refinishing is not as common of a trade as woodworkers or even upholstery shops. But it's a cool trade. It really is something that you can learn. And, everybody owns something leather. So you can learn some basic leather care and repair skills. And, even if it isn't just for flipping, it's got a lot of marketability and satisfaction in doing it well.
Absolutely. So now just to get a little tactical, to give people sort of a taste for what sort of information might be in the course, what would your top tips be for sourcing leather products for the beginner flipper that wants to get started? What should they be looking for?
Sure. Well, I definitely think there are some brand names that are time tested and really good quality. I'm actually over the next couple of weeks, we have on Instagram a carousel coming, 2 carousels coming out, like 5 can't miss leather brands, and there's just people that I work with, Hancock and Moore and Room and Board and Restoration Hardware and Pottery Barn. And there's a bunch of them that if you see that brand, you know that they're doing the right thing. They're not cutting corners in the hides that they're buying or the finishing process. And so, yeah, you're more likely to be able to source something that has value if you go with one of those brands. Now, there's also regions. It's this is sort of like still in the leather world, this is still kind of like a controversial topic, but Italian leather used to be the gold standard. I don't know as much. I mean, if it's truly Italian leather, it still probably is the gold standard, but there's a lot of outsourcing now that there's like ways they can get around it and say it's still Italian, but it's not actually. You probably know what I'm talking about. And so, yeah, so if Italian leather is still probably pretty good quality. Canada, surprisingly, Eckernes and Palliser, there's some brands out of Canada that are making really good leather products. So Made in the USA is coming back, making a comeback. I just worked with a brand called Lee Industries out of North Carolina. So I would say, there's some can't miss brands, and there's some regions that if you're seeing leather that was made from those regions, that you're more likely to get something that's valuable and then has resale value as well.
That's cool. And, Chris, I think with your help, leather is going to become more mainstream in the furniture flipping category. So I really appreciate the work that you're putting in here. As someone who's been in business for a while and sort of seen the shift of industry through time as a business owner, as a practitioner, how do you think furniture re-commerce is going to change with respect to leather in like the next 3 to 5 years? I'm giving a pretty macro question, but I feel like you can handle it.
Yeah. Thank you. So I actually put a poll. I don't use polls that much on like YouTube or whatever, but I was asking people, like, would you be willing to just sight unseen buy a leather couch from Wayfair or one of these online websites? And I guess I'm older than most flippers, so it's a little harder for me to wrap my head around that, but it is becoming reality. People are buying stuff sight unseen from websites. There's a lot of the flippers that I work with are working on some of these sites that they're either sometimes they do the thing where they bid on the price of it and the price goes up, and then it can ship anywhere in the whole United States. So if you're looking for an authentic Ralph Lauren writer's chair, you can find one in California and get it shipped to you. And even with the shipping costs, it's still worth it. So as people are discerning about the brands that are out there that are really quality, they are buying online more often. So I'm definitely seeing that more and more. As manufacturing. See, the hard thing with manufacturing is it definitely gets better and cheaper, but then it's also ability to cut corners is there. Like 20 years ago, leather was all dyed through. So if you cut open a red leather chair, that leather would be red from top to bottom on the hide. Nowadays, the hide is not dyed in most cases, and it's just painted on top red. So as it scratches, it's like showing really badly. Manufacturing, I guess, goes both ways. That's kind of why I'm suggesting going with some of the better manufacturers that have a standard to uphold and are going to keep it. So as you go forward, I've always said to people, if you have the means, buying a $5,000 leather couch is going to be a better investment than buying a $2,000 leather couch, because the $5,000 couch can last 15 or 20 years and then be refinished and last another 10 or 15 years, whereas the $2,000 couch is often going to start to break apart and has particle board inside, all those things, and it's not even going to be refinishable. So yeah, I guess as the market goes, the price points are dropping, but then that makes the legacy brands look even better because their product is quality and it'll last longer.
Absolutely. So we're kind of seeing it go full circle where, furniture used to be made in a certain way, quality standards at a higher price point. Now we're seeing almost like more fast furniture arise, but that can only provide a certain level of experience. And then inevitably consumers are going to circle back to these older, higher quality pieces.
Absolutely. Like the mid-century modern craze, like everybody wants mid-century modern. And if it's really older, it really probably is full solid hardwood and really nice. But I think leather is trending in that direction, as well as people see the cheap stuff just isn't worth it.
Now, what would you say are the top 3 products or tools that every flipper interested in leather should invest in?
Yeah. So I actually have a flipper, leatherhelp.com/DIY products, I think it is. It's got about 20 products on there that I think are going to be the main ones, almost all sourced from Amazon, maybe a few from a specialty place. So any of those products are going to help you, but there's just there's some waxes. Like I said, if you're buying this stuff that's like a brown, really nice, popular one, Restoration Hardware or Pottery Barn, a lot sort of medium brown color, And you can get Urad, R-A-D. It's a wax product that has a little brown tint in it. And if you know how to use the right type of sponge and how to buff it correctly so it doesn't soak in too much and darken the leather, and then how to heat dry it, you're gonna have a great product there. So I like that wax because there's a lot of couches that are that way. Oddly enough, a magic eraser. I don't recommend magic erasers for routine cleaning, but if you get a white leather couch that's been used a lot and it looks grimy, if you use a good leather cleaner and a magic eraser, you can go over it one time and take out so much dirt from the grain of the leather. It just looks stunningly different. And so just buying a couple of boxes of magic erasers or I get the big knockoff cases of them off of Amazon for lighter colored leather cleaning. That's really a great product to use. And then there's some other specialty products. Oh, one that's kind of fun is you'll see pieces that maybe they sat up against something for a while, and you get them and they have this big indentation in the back, and you can actually get that out. You have to heat it carefully, and then you have to use this thing called a chill bar. It's actually a chunk of aluminum that's been shaped to have a flat side on it. And if you heat the leather, and you got to learn how much heat to apply, and then you press this chill bar against it, aluminum draws heat into itself. So it heats up the leather, put on the chill bar, and then that draws the leather out, and a big indentation that might bug somebody and especially shows up in pictures can be totally gone. So you can get that chill bar for $50 from Viper products. I like them a lot. And you can get a heat gun from Home Depot for $25. And again, with some practice, so you're not burning the leather, it's a really cool tool to make the couch look a lot better for pictures and for resale.
So I want to end on an uplifting note here. Or just a higher level note here. What would you say is the most challenging leather job you've ever done? And what did you learn from that experience?
Oh, well, there's been some challenging ones that I learned I probably shouldn't have said yes to this job. But yeah, so some of the most challenging is that when I do cat damage, so cats will treat leather like a toy or like a scratching post. So you can have the front of a leather couch or the side of it, and a cat will just work at it and it will shred the leather on the side. And it looks awful. And people reach out to me. And honestly, I learned at first that I said no to those because I'm like, that's crazy. I'm not going to fix that. But then I started to try them and I got a few right, learned a few techniques, and learned honestly to communicate to the person that I'm not going to get this perfect, but it's going to look a lot better. And stunningly, the people are just thrilled. I mean, it goes from like the shredded leather couch from the cats to looking 90% better, and they're just amazed and super happy. And I've had that job play out many times, and especially in the state of Maryland, where they passed a law that you can't declaw cats anymore, which is probably a good thing, but they're scratching leather even more, and I'm able to fix it. So that's always fun to wow somebody with that job.
There you go. Who knew there was regulatory capture for leather?
There is, yes, absolutely. I should have lobbied for it.
Yeah, interesting. Now, final question for you. For anyone watching this podcast that's still on the fence about learning the skill, what would you say to them?
I mean, give it a shot. I think you're the kind of person that's trying to either do a side hustle flipping or trying to make a living doing flipping is a person that is willing to go for it and willing to take a shot at something non-traditional, maybe have to struggle like I have for so many years with, how do I get health insurance? How do I do this? There's all these obstacles to being out on your own, but the more you can do, the more beautiful a couch can look, the more money you can make on it, the more you can have a business of your own and set your hours and, make your own decisions. And it's really a cool opportunity from a business perspective to have not only a flipping business, but a business that can flip leather and make more profit per piece. So yeah, I think you should go for it. The worst that can happen is, a couch doesn't work out or whatever, but you learn from it, like you said, and have more opportunity to make money on the next one and sell more leather. So I think it's a cool opportunity. It's worth giving it a shot.
Yeah, so you heard it here direct from the source. And I think we're going to get a lot of interested flippers that want to learn more about leather that are going to be interested in your course. So for anyone who wants to check out Chris, his course, some of the products that he's recommending, all of those links are going to be in the description below. Chris, thank you so much for the time today and sharing your knowledge with our community.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
Thanks again. Bye.